promises made, promises kept. That was how I was greeted today with someone that I do not agree with politically. And they were bragging about the fact that there will be no tax on tips. And I said, oh, I didn't know you itemized. I said, what is that? I said, your taxes. I didn't know you itemized. What are you talking about? I said, well, you have to itemize your taxes. Like you can't do a 1040 EZ form. Like you can't just take your W-2 and go in and claim the standard deduction. You'll need to keep the receipts, and you've got to claim the taxes. You got to claim what you actually made, and it's based on cash tips. I was a server before. Do you claim all of your cash tips? So yeah, you can write off up to $25,000 of your cash tips that are probably not all included on your W-2 form, and it's a deduction. It's not just automatically given. You have to claim it and itemize in order to get it. This is why it is so frustrating to have conversations with people who are so uneducated on everything. They're bragging about not having to pay taxes on their tips as if they're, making $500,000 in tips and all of those tips are coming to them in cash. I can't tell you the last time I used cash when I was in a restaurant. I use a card all the time. What are you talking about? You really make $25,000 in cash tips? Did you really claim $25,000 in cash tips? Do you itemize your actual taxes? Do you have receipts? Do you have someone who can file your taxes? Because now you're going to have to pay for that. Because surprise, they did away with the way you could file it with the IRS directly. Like, y'all have got to read. Ugh. Promises made, promises kept.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known. I'm your host, Stacy Brown.
Peace and love, everybody. I'm Niele. Good morning, chat. We're going to dive into some headlines from pardons to news coming out of Southwest. We have a Diddy update for you. And so we have a lot to discuss this morning, Stacy.
Oh, boy. And folks need to read. You saw that video. Read. Tax on tips.
Don't get too excited.
Right. And she made a great point, too. We are almost... It's almost like a cashless society, almost anyway. And who uses cash? Not many people uses cash. You go have a meal at a restaurant or something. Oftentimes, you got the charge card. People, they tap the phones.
Right.
Come on, let's be real here, folks.
Yeah,
that's why you gotta be informed.
It sounds good.
Exactly, and it's just not. Come on. We gotta be realistic about stuff, and that's why we're in the mess we're in now, folks. Not being realistic,
right? 100%,
and not reading, and not doing any type of personal research. So we can go on and on with that. Dr. Joni says they're eliminating the penny. She says it made me wonder how soon we will start getting rid of more cash money. Yeah, it's. And then you got a president that pushes the crypto, and got all this money in crypto. So here we are. Do we have a black quiz today? A black pop quiz? Yep, we sure do. Look at that. All right. In World War II, this future New York figure trained at Montford Point, the segregated boot camp for Black Marines, after first being rejected from the U.S. Marine Corps simply for being Black. Who is that, folks? Put it in the chat. Let's see your answer. But that's interesting. Okay. This is why we like our Black Pop Quiz.
Yeah, learn something new every day.
Yeah, and it makes you go, All right, folks. Lots of news, as Niele said. Lots of news. A grand jury in Waynesboro, Georgia, has decided not to charge a white woman deemed a suspect in the fatal shooting of her Black boyfriend. Many might remember this case. The grand jury in Burke County decided to grant Hannah Cobb a quote no bill. No bill is that they didn't return an indictment. The ruling means that she will not face charges for the death of Telvin Osborne. Cobb was arrested for the shooting, but initially claimed she was either cleaning or clearing her 9mm pistol when it went off and killing the 30-year-old. She faced the charge of felony involuntary manslaughter. Black Enterprise reported that one twist in the incident is that Osborne was known to berate Black women on social media while praising white women. The case, of course, gained national attention over conflicting reports of how the fatal shooting of Cobb's Black boyfriend occurred. Although Cobb insisted during a 911 call that she tried clearing her gun when it went off or cleaning it, Sheriff Alfonso Williams said there was no evidence at all or information about a person cleaning the weapon before the shooting occurred. So a lot of people are now on social media saying she got away with murder.
For sure. Yeah. It just lets you know how, depending on who's in power, how the laws change or they bend towards whoever is in power. Because once upon a time we had checks and balance. When I saw this, I thought of Brotham James, the man who was murdered in Dallas, Texas in 2018. I think she was a former police officer. And there was some hanky-panky within that situation, but then it came out that there was something going on between these two. And even going further back, this is just a sign of like what has always happened to Black men in this country with white women.
That Dallas thing, I'm sorry, was that the one where the brother hugged her in court?
Yes.
Yes. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, Brotham Jean. So for sure, yeah, this is like a reminder of our history and how white women get away with things. I think manslaughter was a perfect charge for her. I mean, accountability means everything. It could have been an accident, but you still did that and took somebody's son. Took somebody's family member, took a friend from somebody, and you should be held accountable for that either way.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Her story changed. Police said that the first story about cleaning the weapon was not proven. There was no evidence whatsoever that she was trying to clean her weapon. Then there was another story that she had locked herself in a closet, called his mom, saying that he was out of control, and there was no real evidence to suggest that either. So essentially, I mean, here you have, just look at the picture. Look at the picture. You knew the end result here, and this guy, regardless of his misguided ways of always, as they say, he had a routine of berating Black women on social media. Did he deserve it? No, of course not. I mean, that shouldn't have cost him his life. He's not. In other words, I'm looking at so much social media on this, and he is not getting any sympathy. I think you gotta give him some sympathy. I mean, he as misguided as he was with his whole Black women, white women thing. This white woman still took his life.
Yeah, what makes this dangerous is the fact that white people are getting away with victimizing and killing people of color. And I think that's the larger issue, is that now the laws are bending in their favor to do harm to people of color. And so that's what we have to pay attention to. It made me even think of Ahmaud Arbery. And if that would have happened under a Trump administration,
Right.
the district attorney, she was under a Trump admin, they dropped the charges against her because they were going to hold her accountable. So it kind of shows you, depending on who's in charge, like I was saying, how the laws become unjust and unfair for people of color.
Yeah. We got some responses to the Black Pop quiz. David Youngblood says Jackie Robinson. We got MB saying Charles Rangel. Alfred Masters is what RNG says. So we got a few good responses. Austin's posing his own quiz. He says, why doesn't Stacy like Taylor Swift? Austin is always trying to start trouble from afar. You find a way of injecting Taylor Swift into the conversation. Didn't they just have the American Music Awards?
Yeah, they were held on Monday in Las Vegas.
Isn't that something that I remember years ago? That used to be a big thing, and now it's like, did they just hold the American Music Awards? Wow.
Well, it was sat dormant for 2 years. They brought it back this year. It was hosted by
Oh.
Jennifer Lopez, and none of the top nominees attended.
Mm.
So
Yeah, there was some beef. I know not long ago between the Dick Clark Productions that's always did the AMAs and the Grammys, and because it used to be that the AMAs years. I know back in the '80s, and that's pretty much after the '80s I stopped watching for whatever reason. But it used to be that the American Music Awards was in January, the Grammys were in February. Then they moved the American Music Awards up until like October, November, or something like that. It just got it was a big beef. If you performed on one, you could, the other one didn't want you. It was just wild and crazy stuff for these awards. It also goes to show you these things nowadays they mean very little.
I mean, it depends on if you're an artist and nominated. It means a lot to them if you're nominated.
Yeah.
Yeah. A
That's
Grammy is
a good
still
point.
a Grammy is still a prestigious thing to have. Billboard Awards, prestigious thing to have. Janet Jackson, you were speaking of the American Music Awards. She
Mhm.
received like the top honor. I don't know if it's the Icon Award, but she
Icon, yeah.
performed and accepted her award. So that was a highlight.
Mm, okay. Another guest on the pop quiz is Adam Clayton Powell. Okay. Wow.
Okay.
So we're getting some responses. It's going to be interesting to see the answer to that question. Also in the news this morning, at least 10 defendants accused of other crimes when the FBI came to search their homes after the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot have invoked the pardon issued by President Trump to claim that his order also clears them of the secondary charges. And in most of those cases, this is incredible. In most of those cases, federal prosecutors join with the defendants. But on 4 occasions recently, federal judges have said no, disagreeing even as the Justice Department argued in favor of broadly applying the president's pardon. In a strongly worded opinion, or several opinions, federal judges in Washington and Baltimore have refused to grant dismissals, describing the government's request as unreasonable and acting in bad faith. And when one defendant appealed the Washington judge's ruling, the federal DC appeals court also rejected him, saying the Trump pardon does not cover offenses wholly independent of events at the Capitol on January 6th, even if it's uncovered during the investigation of January 6th offenses. I mean, this is just so. Listen, the bottom line here is that this is not a what do you call it, immunity thing, right? A pardon is not an immunity thing. If you're being pardoned for a specific crime, in this case, the Capitol riot, that pardon does not extend to if you killed somebody down the street. It doesn't extend to the robbing the liquor store. It's that act, and that the federal prosecutors join these defendants and trying to clear them of all these other cases. You said it a few minutes ago. Things have drastically changed, folks, under this administration.
Yeah, they act like they're playing Monopoly and they got a get out of free jail card. It's like even in Monopoly, it only applies to that specific thing. Once you roll the dice again, you still can go back to jail. You got to win the card again. And so, I mean, into like the top of the show, reading is fundamental. They're just like a pardon. You say pardon, I'm pardoned for life. And in Donald Trump's mind, he awards loyalists. And so for Donald Trump, they probably do get a get out of jail free card. Some of those January 6th rioters are probably some of the people that have the mask on that are helping deport these people. And so it's just like we're going back to slave catching. We're going back to law and order under white Klansmen. It's just wild out here.
Well, in fact, it's unfortunate that you're right that some of them are, those wearing the masks with the ICE jackets or the FBI jackets, and they're taking people off the streets when they should be off the streets.
Right.
Many of them, if you recall, too, many of the 9/11, I always say 9/11, January 6th characters, many of them were either law enforcement or ex-military.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so just to think that law enforcement would participate in an act like that, in which it eventually ended up costing what, 5 officers their lives, um, 5 Capitol Police officers. Just think about that for a moment. That law enforcement would take part in that. But you said it best. What's the origin of law enforcement in America? Slave
Slave
catchers.
catching. Hmm. And let's not forget that they are still taunting and harassing Capitol police officers to this day. I mean,
Yeah.
the former police officers from the Capitol, they still come up doing interviews talking about how they're harassed. These people know where they live.
Yep. Heck, they were giving information where Obama lived. If you remember, you had somebody getting arrested, trying to go to Obama's house to do whatever probably they were the same plan for Pelosi, in which they went into her house and the guy beat her husband with a hammer. That was probably the same plan for Barack Obama.
Yeah, I mean, it's dangerous to defend democracy to these days. You have to really, pay attention. Even like what you say, you never know how it's going to come back. I mean, because the conversation is Trump loves a loyalist. If you are loyal to Trump, you can get away with murder.
Yeah, and you said the get out of jail free card, like he possesses this blanket immunity right now that he can do whatever he wants. And to go along with that, he is, as we've talked about on this program, he's changing laws. He's having laws change, I should say. For instance, he's ordered, not necessarily changed the law, but ordered the Justice Department not to go after white collar crimes, not to go after crimes involving foreign, where an American is accused of anything to do with the foreign government,
Hmm.
meaning, his sons. What did you say yesterday? Where's his sons all the time? Over there overseas making deals.
Right.
So interesting times, folks. Interesting times. The guy that went to Obama's house, he was found guilty about 2 weeks ago. Right, exactly. Um, it's just it's interesting times. We'll see. They Dr. Jody says the R's won't even acknowledge the bravery and sacrifice the Capitol Police gave on January 6th, won't agree to a plaque to honor them. They're the enemy in MAGA land. And that
Yeah,
is
and that's
really true.
sad. Yeah, that's sad. I mean, because there were Republican lawmakers in there. I mean, the vice president's life was in danger, and he was Trump's right-hand man.
One of the greatest lines that the former Vice President Kamala Harris delivered during the campaign was about J.D. Vance. Essentially, she said they tried to hang his former running mate, his former vice president. What are they going to do to you? So,
Great point. It's a great point.
yeah,
When you
I
piss
mean,
them off.
this right, and that was really her point. I paraphrased her, but that was pretty much what she was saying. And I thought it was just a great response to whatever was being said at the time. I mean, this guy, like you said, he wants you to be loyal to him, but he absolutely is not going to show you that type of loyalty. Oh
Right.
gosh! And these
Unless
people
it
he's
benefits
pardoning,
them. Hmm.
unless he benefits these people, and we're going to talk more about those who he pardoned. But the other day he pardoned someone who had given $1 million to him. The
Hmm.
guy's wife gave $1 million to him, and so he pardoned him. It's quid pro quo. It's all about the
Yeah.
money in this administration. It's all about the money.
For sure, for sure. And speaking of pardons, while everyone is talking about Trump pardoning reality stars Todd and Julie Chrisley, who he pardoned yesterday, there's another Donald Trump presidential pardon you should know about. Trump also pardoned Paul Walzak, a man who pleaded guilty to tax crimes back in November. Now, here's the pay for play part, Stacy. This comes just 3 weeks after Paul's mother, Elizabeth Fago, attended a Mar-a-Lago fundraiser with $1 million cost per person. Now, his mother was listed on the pardon petition, claiming her political activity motivated her son's criminal prosecution. Now, Walzak was sentenced to 18 months in prison, 2 years supervised release, and was ordered to pay more than $4 million in restitution. But because of his pardon, he's spared from both. Now, according to the Times, his mother helped host at least 3 fundraisers for Trump and attended events at both of his inaugurations.
So, I laugh at this, and it's not funny, but I laugh because it's just, it just shows you the state of America. It's come on.
Yeah, and then what he did was he didn't pay like $7 million of taxes that should have went to his employees. He owned some type of healthcare company, and he didn't pay the taxes on his employees, but he bought yachts.
And so what I'm getting here, you mentioned the Chrisleys, that was almost, it sounds like that was done as a smokescreen.
Correct. Because this happened, and then all of a sudden that came out, and it kind of dominated the headlines.
Right.
And then he had the black lady who he made over pardons standing by him as he was signing the orders.
Diabolical.
Yeah. And there's a gentleman that he put over that couldn't get confirmed in Congress. So he put him over pardons. Let me get his name for you. It's just
he put
wild.
He couldn't get confirmed.
He couldn't get confirmed. So he put him
And
over
so
pardons. And so it is just, it's wild. It's wild. His name is, I know I wrote his name down somewhere.
Oh boy, but it's absolutely ludicrous. This stuff is comical.
His name is Ed Martin.
Ed Martin.
He couldn't get confirmed, and so
That's
Trump
right.
put him in the DOJ over pardons.
Yeah, right. Because he wanted him. He wanted him in a DOJ position, right?
Mm-hmm. So that is just, where we are in this country. But I think this next story, as we talk about pardons and we look at the separate but equal conversation going on. Meanwhile, a federal grand jury has charged Charlotte's city council member Tawana Brown, along with their 2 daughters, with fraudulently securing $124,000 in COVID relief funds. Now, Brown and her daughter are facing charges of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud for allegedly submitting false applications to obtain pandemic relief. Now, Brown, she recently addressed the indictment, stating, "So if it's about justice and I paid it back on my own, why are we here? No one had to tell me to do that." She also stated that she paid $20,000 and she never even received $120,000.
So this is the thing, when they were given these PPP loans and the COVID relief money and all, I said it then, and I wasn't the only one. But I heard many people say it, for Black folks, leave that money alone. Leave that money alone. It's going to come back. It's going to come back. And this is wild and crazy. And so you're talking about somebody, the previous story, like I said, with the pardon, 4 million or whatever, he defrauded 7 million plus. And we're talking really 20K here. And now they want her and her daughters to go to prison over this. This is as diabolical diabolical as they can get. And we got two folks in the chat, Mike V and Nancy Wall, saying whatever happened to Brett Favre. He didn't pay that money back. And no one's got smoke for him.
Yeah, he has a documentary on Netflix right now. I think it's like at number 2.
Number 2?
Yeah, it's like number 2.
Wow. That must be all MAGA.
It's number 2. Number 1 is Sirens, and number 3 is Tyler Perry's She's the People. If you haven't seen it, it's really good. But let's stay focused.
She's about to get a Tyler Perry on.
But this woman right here says she paid the $20K back. So, I mean, those PPP loans were necessary, and they weren't just for white folks. And so she paid the money back. You know, that's what she's saying. They're alleging that she took out 124. She said she didn't do it. And so it's like this law, and there is no law and order right now. It's just, if you're a Trump loyalist, you can rape the country, you can take money, and you can be a cheat, a liar. But if you're not a Trump loyalist, they're going to find ways, even if you didn't do anything, like they're deporting people who are citizens. So, and we had, go ahead.
It just gets, it gets depressing. You know, not only listening and finding out this news, but having to deliver this type of news. It's just it's like, whoo, folks, we got to do something.
Right. Yeah. I think it's important though. Like, as I was watching the news yesterday, I saw about the Chrisleys. I saw about Fago, but I didn't see this story about this woman, about the city council member. And I think that's where the mainstream media loses the narrative, because they're not telling the full story. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're telling, okay, Trump is wrong for pardoning these people, but there's a bigger racial issue going on in this country. And that's what they're not talking about. And Trump already told them he don't want to hear about it. That's called, that the new term is diversity. He don't want to hear about that. I didn't see this story on the news at all yesterday.
Of course not. And you're right. And if you did, you wasn't going to get the full story, as you said. And that is really where we at. And especially with, as we reported on, like, Trump and NBC, Trump and ABC, Trump and PBS, Trump and CBS, you know, and what he's doing basically to, there's a story now, the guy in the New York Post, the editor, spiked his story. Now the editor didn't like, it was about one of Trump's nominees that he had done some research on, and his big story it was going to be, and they spiked the story. Now it comes out, and they suspended him after he spoke out about it, and they're going to fire him now. But the editor who spiked it, well, Trump has recommended this editor before he spiked that story. He recommended him for a bigger job somewhere else, and so they are showing their loyalties. Trump has his hand in all of the media, and this is why you're going to continue to get more and more misinformation, disinformation, and in their own words, fake news.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the narrative, like the spin is everything. And one of the reasons why I was, you know, am really adamant and focused on working with the Black press is because, you know, we have the power to create a narrative. We don't just always have to follow the trend. And so you can start and spark a conversation that's not being had, because you control the narrative. I think that is important. You know, when we look at our Black newspapers in our communities, that they are giving us the narrative of our people. They're telling us things that you're not going to see in the mainstream media. That's why I think Black media is so important. And we can't forget that we're not just supposed to report the news. We have the opportunity to create the news and an alternative, a truthful alternative and narrative to the stories.
Well, MB says good communicators are needed, especially now.
For sure. And in more
Oh,
news, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention is no longer recommending COVID shots for healthy kids and healthy pregnant women under the direction of Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, earlier this month, he announced that drug manufacturers will be required to conduct more studies on the safety and efficiency of updated COVID-19 boosters for healthy adults under the age of 65. Now, FDA officials have said they are looking to shift away from approving updated COVID-19 vaccines each year, especially since the virus is now mutating at a slower rate.
mm, 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 mm. You know, this guy, these people are so they diabolical, I guess is the word that keeps coming to mind. They destroy people's lives, taking their jobs away. They taking people's health care away. Seniors, disabled, veterans, people who served the country in war. Of course, Black folks. And now they don't want you to protect yourself from any type of disease or virus that might come along, or give you the option of doing so. This is, the whole country, the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one.
Right. I mean, because this whole story, like the whole reason why we were able to curve in, the immunity, I mean, the disease, the virus is because of the vaccine, because of it. And so, yeah, now it has subsided because people have been taking the vaccination for
And
it.
even if you don't believe in it, I respect people's choices and their
Yeah.
decisions to, because there are people say, I'm not taking no vaccine, and I respect that. But let people make their own choices.
But enough people took it to where it was able to curb the virus. Enough people I took it once because I wanted to go on vacation. So I was like, let me go ahead and get this vaccination so I can have my card when I go to the airport and I could travel.
But this,
And that was
whew,
sufficient. But older people, kids, it really attacked people who already had pre-diagnosed conditions. Like if you had cancer, if you had diabetes, if you had sickle cell, you were more receptive. Your body was more receptive to contract the virus. If you were a
this
healthy person, not as much. And so it was important. This vaccine is important.
this guy, this Kennedy dude, man, he also wants to. They want to stop these studies that we see, and now they want to prohibit scientists and medical people from participating in the things like the Journal of Medicine, the Journal of Medical Science, and things where they do these studies that really help you to understand things. They want all of that stopped. Why would you want stuff like that stopped?
Right. Right.
Mm.
Right. Well, let's
Uh,
head over to the Justice Department.
oh, it's
The
worse, bad to worse.
The
Go ahead.
the Department of Justice has pulled funding from key crime-fighting programs across the country, including those targeting fentanyl dealers responsible for deadly overdoses. Now, the only fentanyl dealers I know are pharmaceutical companies.
Well, they're pulling funding from fighting crime, is what you're telling me.
Yeah,
They-
fentanyl. Fentanyl
fentanyl,
was pushed on the streets from pharmaceutical companies,
right?
and
Uh,
so
so now they don't want to fight crime, those type of crimes, where it's killing folks, left people dropping dead, and they're like, okay, well, you know what?
and you talk
That's
about
not
organized crime. I mean, it's
organized
no
crime.
more organized than a pharmaceutical company.
Mm, mm, mm. Whew. What else you got?
Now, somebody selling weed, or something, they're gonna go to prison. But if you're a pharmaceutical company, pushing drugs on the street, I'm gonna give you a pass.
You see, this is, it's again not justifying But this is why you get crazy folks like Luigi going off on the healthcare CEO. This is why, it's cause and effect. And you have, like I said, out of control people who can't control their emotions, can't control their anger, like a Luigi, and they go out and do this stuff. And so that means you guys are complicit. The government is complicit. That just as, and this is why that Luigi character, of course he's not black, is one reason he may get off. But this is another reason why he may get off. You might see the jury who says the government did this.
Yeah, and that's dangerous because I don't care. You shouldn't be taking nobody's life.
Exactly.
Just like the white girl at the top of the show. Her ass needs to go to jail, and so does he.
Yeah, but what I'm telling you, this is a strong possibility, because people see this stuff and it's outrageous.
But I think that's what Trump wants. Trump wants a civil war. He wants chaos, because if there's chaos, then guess what? He's going to be able to stay in office. Yep. So he wants to push this country into a civil war, so that he can say, we can't hold no election. We're too much out of control. We need law and order.
Yep. And that is it. You're right.
So if you're trying to get out of here on Southwest Airlines, you might want to know this next story. Today marks the end of an era. After 50 years, Southwest Airlines 2 free check bags. It's a wrap. It's over. Now, the change comes as the airline sets to increase revenue. Baggage fees generated over $7 billion for other U.S. carriers last year, and Southwest wants a piece of that dough.
Of course they do.
So the first bag is $35 to check. The second bag is $45. If you are a Miles High member or certain, if you're a certain level in their programs, you won't have to pay for the bag. But in general, everybody gonna have to start paying or checking their bag when they check their bags.
Southwest Air, so much for the economy airlines.
Yeah.
So 35 for the first bag, 45 for the second. Yeah. Now you average at least 2 bags, right? I mean, people who are going on vacation.
Yeah, you're going. If I'm going to an island, I'm trying to get it to 1 bag, because all you need is your bathing suits, a couple of pairs of Daisy Dukes, and maybe some dresses. I try to condense my stuff now to 1 bag if I can. Pack light, like 𝗪𝗁𝗏 says.
Daisy Dukes. I haven't heard that expression in a while.
Give me a window seat, pack light, let's go.
Okay.
So yeah.
What if it's winter time though?
Huh?
What if it's winter? What if you're going somewhere in the winter? Now you're talking about an island in the summer, but what about the winter? How do you pack?
I still try to keep it to 1 bag. So even still, you could check a big bag. It just has to be under 50 pounds. I know it was so funny when I was in DC and I went the last time we were there, or maybe the time before, but I went to go get those blocks from Black Lives Matter Square. And so I had to reconfigure because I had probably about 30 to 40 pounds of brick.
That's a shame. That's a crying shame.
That threw me off.
Wow. Orange G says he's about to fly on a drone or one of them Chinese flying cars. But Greer is yep. She said they don't know Daisy Dukes. How many Daisy Dukes are you packing, Niele? She says.
I have a few pair. I have like 3, 4, 5 pair.
And look, Mike V says you thirst trapping on the beach.
Well, if you're on the beach, you shouldn't have on that much clothing. I would hope that you're not on the beach fully dressed
with a sweatsuit.
Come on now. I hope you have on some swimming trunks, with a t-shirt and some flip-flops. No cups. So in other words, no cowboy boots on or no combat boots on. You come on.
That's a shame. In other words, Mike V, you're gonna be the thirst trapper.
Right. And then they also say, though, on a serious note, Southwest Airlines, they're also looking at the first of the year 2026 to start assigning seats. So you can't just get on the plane and sit wherever you want.
Oh, that was another thing, right, about Southwest, right? That's what I understood about that. That you can, it's first come, first serve, or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're changing their whole program. A sign of the times. And then last but not least, let's talk a little Diddy news. But it's not what you
Diddy.
think. According to the U.S. Sun, Diddy has earned around $4 million by renting out his $60 million Gulfstream luxury plane. Now, it looks like it's been rented about 100 times, and a single ride on Love Air cost about $32,000.
Love Air.
That's the name of it. Love Air. Now, this comes days after 𝗀𝗫𝗪𝗡, a former Diddy assistant, testified that he once witnessed Diddy beating Cassie aboard Love Air. Now, this week starts the third week of testimony, and Diddy has pleaded not guilty to 1 count of sex racketeering, 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, and 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. And of course, we'll continue to follow this trial. Lots happening.
The prosecutions did say that they were going to finish a week early than they thought. And so they're looking at either next week or the week after next.
The prosecution?
Yes, the prosecution. And so the defense will finally start to put on their case when that's over with. But they had expected to go on longer, they said, than what they thought. So they informed the judge that they are now about a week ahead, at least a week ahead of schedule. So this thing could be wrapping up soon. And look, again, folks, I don't know, but listening to various legal analysts on all these networks, on and different publications, they have not made their case at all against him based on the charges. And again, she mentioned Cassie being beaten aboard Love Air. Folks, this case is not, the charges are not about beating up Cassie. If it was a domestic violence case, then they would have certainly made that case. They certainly made that case. But that's not what he's charged with. It's mind-boggling that we are in this part of the prosecution's case where now they're just calling psychologists and police officers who responded to his home when they raided it and stuff like that. Basically verifying the evidence that they put forward. This is what they do. Where is they have not, by any counts, by any experts' opinions, have not shown racketeering and even the more serious trafficking charges, according to experts. Yeah, have he paid people who've flown these, he's paid these men? Well, even that is in question. We talked about that. I saw somebody talk about that the other day, that apparently Cassie was paying these folks based on her testimony. Now, you can argue that it was Diddy's money.
Right. But I think with racketeering, and you talk about RICO, there are co-conspirators. And if that being the case, then Cassie would be the co-conspirator. And I think on Friday, the judge did warn the prosecution that they are proving, that Diddy was abusive, but he's not seeing the charges, being played out in the testimony. I think you hear a lot of women, like yesterday, one of his former assistants was on the stand, and, she was all over the place with her testimony.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, he did this, he did that, but then Cassie was mediocre. Diddy hired me back. You kept going back. And so I just think like that whole world of sex, drugs, rock and roll, Hollywood, it's just a world that if you're not on the inside, you don't get it. You don't get it. But some of the things people tolerate, what's that song? What? people do. Oh, you know, it happens in Hollywood a lot.
Well, the witness testified yesterday that Cassie was like the queen of bad boys. She was, I mean, she was more pampered and taken care of than any artist on Bad Boy, and she knew it. You know, and this person testified that this is not a fan of Diddy who testified yesterday, right? And so it's just not you know, from our eyes and from apparently a lot of eyes that are so-called experts.
The judge.
Right, and the
said
judge.
it on Friday.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing about it, again, Greer says it, this case, I didn't think the case would be about her. I really didn't think the case would be about her. I thought she would be a witness that, you know, people wanted to hear from, that the prosecution had, she will be able to testify to some things that perhaps nobody really knew. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. We already knew, that jury already knew that he beat on her.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The jury already knew that they participated in some illicit behavior. You told them nothing that they didn't expect.
I also think, though, it's also pointing out that once again, like, who controls the narrative? The media. They made this big thing about these elaborate freak-offs. Well, to me, in this case, the only thing that is showing me is that these freak-offs were very private and intimate sessions with Diddy and his lovers. I have not heard one testimony to where anybody stayed at a freak-off with 50 to 100 people and they was just swinging from chandeliers butt naked.
That's
So
what I
I
was
think that
expecting.
the freak, yeah, exactly. But I think this is also, and nobody is talking about that they exaggerated these freak-offs. These freak-offs were intimate sessions with Diddy and his girl. And I think once Cassie left, the next freak-offs were with 𝗀𝗄 and 50 Cent's baby's mama, Daphne. You know what I'm saying? Because I know somebody that Daphne hired. They got flued out.
Y'all heard that? Prosecutors subpoena her.
No, they had talked to him before Diddy was even arrested. And so these were intimate moments with Diddy and his females. They weren't these elaborate. That's why when everybody's like, well, I went to a Diddy party, I didn't see no freak-offs, because it wasn't really like that from what I'm seeing in all of this testimony that's coming out. The prosecution hasn't asked any of them, have they been in a freak-off with more than 5 people? Always this intimate session.
So you say more than 5 people. The testimony, now I'm not doubting that there's been multiple people in them, but all the testimony, and that's all the jury can go by, suggests that the only freak-offs happened, it included Diddy, Cassie, and one other man.
Mm-hmm.
It was never like 5, 10 people at a time.
Right. Yeah.
It went hours long.
Right.
But she didn't testify that it was more than one man and Diddy.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, she testified that Diddy was basically watching and directing her and some man.
Right.
It wasn't her and multiple men. Now, did that ever happen? Maybe. But you got to go on. You have to go on what the jury has to go on, what is presented and accepted as evidence in the courtroom. Exactly. Not on, oh, I know he must have been. No, you can't do that.
Yeah, but these big freak-offs, I'm not seeing it. And even if you go back and look at interviews with 𝗀𝗄, she was basically talking about the freak-offs in interviews with her and Diddy. And it just always seemed like it was just their freak-off. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, okay, after the Met Gala, we're going to have this party. Everybody going to be up in the room. Now, I have heard these types of things happen with other celebrities that we will not go into. But these big elaborate freak-offs, I don't see it. I just don't.
Yeah, I really thought that meant, like you said, Diddy parties. When people said Diddy parties, I thought that meant that you had this, crazy, out of control, like orgies going on and stuff like that. And it's not, listen, folks, I'm sure Niele agrees with this. We are not defending Diddy. We're just stating what's being presented in court. I could care less what happens to Diddy. But I also hate when somebody is, by this government, by this justice or injustice system, he's just overcharged or falsely charged. He was
And
not
false
charged with
narratives.
domestic, right,
And
and false
narratives.
narratives, right?
Yeah. I
Is
will
he,
say alleged narratives, but to me they're false now. I just don't see these big freak offs, and I think this was a big part of why people wanted to get Diddy locked up, is because they thought he was having these mass parties, and then they kept showing that big bed in his backyard, like everybody was just on the bed butt naked. Everybody was just a baby oil. It was baby oil everywhere, but it was only for like
well, I
three,
can't
four
find no baby
people.
oil.
So I mean, and I really I hope that his defense addresses that. I think that's important.
They will. There's no question.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just all manufactured.
Yeah, and as Greer points out, too, one of the things they've accomplished, if nothing else, is humiliate him and his family. And if any, I feel sorry for his family. I don't feel sorry for him, because anybody needed to be humbled, it was him.
Right, 100%.
So
I mean, clearly he was a horrible CEO. He was an abusive CEO, mentally and sometimes physically. He overexerted his privilege. He took advantage of women. I mean, all of those things are true. But, if we go back to the charges of, sex racketeering, 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, and 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, I mean, Cassie was hiring it. So if the 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, they proved,
go ahead. You can best believe that when the defense takes over, they're going to highlight. It's certainly in closing arguments, but certainly during their case, they're going to highlight and pinpoint how Cassie, the guy, we had a guy testify. One of the sex workers testify. Oh, she told me what to do. She paid me. She walked me to the elevator, and she actually gave me like $2,000 bonus, a tip or whatever.
She met him at the door.
Instruction,
all of that. And so, I mean, like I said, I think they were in a horrible relationship. I do think that he did take advantage of her. But I also think that, wanting a certain lifestyle and wanting all the perks and benefits of it sometimes allows people to accept things that they wouldn't accept from a broke man.
I ain't saying you a gold digger. Oh man. All right. Greer says that there's a power dynamic. She doesn't agree with that part. She said there's a power dynamic, but they have not made their case. What should he do? She says when he comes home, she believes that he is going to get acquitted. So what should he do when he comes home, Niele?
I mean, that's a luxury that I don't have, because he will have money. Shoot, he keep renting out that jet. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if I was him, I would just go to the Bahamas for a while.
Lay low?
I mean, what does he have to prove?
Well, I mean, his ego is bruised beyond, almost beyond repair. So he might very well be looking to, in his own way, rehab his ego.
Hopefully your boy Russell Simmons will say, "Come on over here to Bali. Calm down."
It won't be no need for him to go to Bali. The time they have gone to Bali is before he got locked.
Well, no, I mean, I think that he is going to be a plague in the business. He's not gonna. Nobody's gonna really want to be around him. Not DJ Khaled, not the Jay-Z. I mean, if you're telling me that Kanye is his biggest supporter, I would go to Bali, and I would just sit out for a while.
Yeah, there's no question. First, this trial is not going to break him financially, and all the lawsuits are not going to break him financially. The guy is set for life. His kids are set for life. and they will be that way. But he will not be earning any more money. He's going to have to really take care of what he has, because this guy's done.
Yeah,
He definitely.
or
She
he
said,
move under an alias and do some business. He could dabble in stock, or he could do a lot of things.
yeah, but it has to be under the radar, because nobody's going to work with him publicly. That's for sure. And she's saying the same thing you're saying. He can make money under an alias, and that is really like investing. That is maybe even if is he really a great producer? Do you think he's a great producer of music?
I mean, I think he knows how to put great producers around him and give his input. I think he does know a sound. When you look at what he did at Uptown with Mary J. Blige, if you look at what he did, even Jodeci, Devontae and Emma say, though, he didn't do nothing. This was all us. But even with Bad Boy Records, and Biggie, he is like the orchestra, the conductor of the orchestra. He ain't playing no instruments. He just doing this, do that sound, and he has an ear for music.
So I asked that because, and Greer says that he is he knows production, he's great at marketing. I asked that because perhaps he could be hired again, as you guys say, without any fanfare, without people knowing that he's behind it. Artists, I can see artists saying, can you do this? But you're not going to get no public credit for it. You get paid, but no,
Chris Brown might mess with him. There are some artists out here.
Leave Chris Brown alone.
There are some black men out here who are getting tired of all this, accusing me of stuff, and so you never know. You never know. You never know.
Wow. It's going to be interesting. I will, my last take on is what Greer said, that he needs to, I would think he'd want to talk to his children, spend time repairing that relationship, because a lot of nasty things have come out. His mother's been at the trial constantly. The kids have been there. They are seeing and hearing stuff, but more, just as important, maybe, or more important, or just as important, the daughters. Yeah, I mean, he needs to sit down with them for sure, and try and fix things a little bit there.
Right.
So anyway, wow, what an update.
We'll continue to track the case, and of course keep you updated on all things Diddy,
all things Diddy. And 50 Cent is not letting up. What's wrong with 50 Cent?
I think he has a problem. I think he's too invested in Diddy's life.
Something happened between them, right?
His baby's mother Diddy started messing with him. And they have a long history, going back to when Biggie was alive. And I think that's kind of partly why Diddy took his woman, his baby's mama. You know what I'm saying? So
that's the beef. That's why 50. Okay, so that's why 50 Cent won't let up.
Well, I mean, they had prior beef, but I think when Diddy started messing in with Daphne, his baby's mother, that really set him off.
Okay. So then, I've been wondering, because I mean, 50 sound like a jilted lover.
I mean, you are building a studio in Shreveport, Louisiana. You have the Power Universe, which, is ending because he's beefing with, Big Meech and all these other people. But it's like, why are you posting about Diddy 3 or 4 times a day? I think I stopped following 50 because I'm like, I don't want to hear you talk about Diddy every day.
Yeah, it's an obsession.
Yeah, he's obsessed with Diddy. I don't even think he sees his obsession.
Maybe not, because it's embarrassing. I mean, this is 50 Cent. This is 50 Cent, the man, this and that or whatever. And yet, it's this insane obsession with Diddy and his situation. So,
and he's also obsessed with Jay-Z too. He's also obsessed with Jay-Z as well.
I just gotta throw something in there about Diddy, and this is just like a street observation. Diddy is a street cat, okay? And I do think that something was, implied, right? And street dudes don't forget that. They don't they're not going to sex and freak offs because they don't want to be, they got to be the only, man tool in the room. I'm just saying, he just don't. And I think that he did something, just in a situation, and he just, it's very low level, but his ego, right, around Diddy saying something that was inappropriate or questionable, and he just can't get it out because he's like, 50's a businessman, but he's still like a street dude. He's still a street dude. And those Hollywood parties on that level and all that crazy stuff going on, that's just not his style. And he's always been critical of it. Always. Just think about it. You know what I mean? Whenever he's on these like Breakfast Club or whatever, he's always turns to something questionable as it relates to sex acts. So I don't know. I think it's just kind of basic. I think it's in addition to some other things. And he's from Queens.
And he's from Queens. Y'all remember Charlie's Angels? And the boss, I guess it was Charlie. You never saw his face, but you heard his voice. Good morning, Angels. That's Greer. It just pops up.
Good morning, Angels.
There you go. Oh gosh. All right, folks. RNG says 50 is MAGA. He supported the failed bills that Jeff Landry wanted. Yeah, we remember that. That's for sure. Our black card. Arthur Watkins Jr. is having his black card revoked today. He's a Tennessee entrepreneur and so-called trustee of the Freedmen's Reparations Fund Trust. This guy has no problem with Columbus Day, celebrates St. Patrick's Day. He has no problem with Donald Trump's upcoming birthday parade. But you know what he does have a problem with? Africa Day. He also asks, what is that? What is Africa Day? He criticized Mayor Brandon Johnson harshly. Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago for recognizing Africa Day. He also says he's not African. He doesn't want to be known as African or African American. But first and foremost, Africa Day, you should be informed. It's the annual commemoration of the foundation of the Organization of African Unity, which happens on May 25th. It is celebrated in various countries on the African continent, as well as around the world. And to criticize that and go along with a president's ego filling parade, and St. Patrick's and all that stuff, dude, no, you got to sit the cookout out this summer. Black card is revoked for the summer, at least for the summer. And that's who we're taking the black card from this morning. Give it a rest.
All right. I mean, I've never heard of Africa Day, so I'm glad to know about it. Yeah. Well,
it started. It's relatively new. It started in 1963, and this was really a cry and a rally that the African nations, the 55 nations, would do every year as a show of unity. And come on, if you had, think about that. If Africa were, we always talk about us uniting here, the different black organizations, BlackPress, etc. Imagine if those countries united, those 55 countries in Africa, how powerful that would be. And this is what this is about. Africa Day is about unity. And I know that the former African Union ambassador, Dr. Quo, she has, from day one, since I've ever talked to her and anybody else, I know Greer's mom knows her extremely well, personal friends. She is huge on unifying Africa. you can't be against unifying Africa, in my opinion.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, I've just never heard of it. I think it's something even like before Juneteenth was a holiday. Unless you were from Galveston, Texas, or you were from the South, people really didn't know about Juneteenth. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then they learned about, I know, especially here in California, I used to do with Radio 1 out here, we used to do a Juneteenth celebration. And it was all like back in the early 2000s. And it was astounding how many people didn't know what Juneteenth was. And it was like, but it was a blessing, because then you got to teach people about, you know, emancipation proclamations and how each state, you know, it wasn't across the board. Each state was ratified as time went on, and how Galveston, Texas, you know, General Granger, you know, it was a history lesson. So hopefully Africa Day now could be a history lesson for us to tap more into our ancestral lineage and, you know, where we come from. So I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
Africa Day.
David Youngblood says no to-go plate either for this guy. And RNG says, really going to celebrate Juneteenth extra this year. Those plantations burning down was just a start. And heck no to Black MAGA being around me for Juneteenth.
Hilarious. Well, get ready, y'all, because Trump is coming for Juneteenth. He just ain't done it yet.
Without question.
In June, get ready, get ready, get ready.
Yeah, without question. All right, some black facts on this date. In 1863, the most notable African-American regiment of the Civil War, the 54th Massachusetts Infantry, left Boston for combat. Colonel Robert Shaw was selected as the head of the infantry and organized a group made of freed or escaped slaves. This came after the War Department established the Emancipation Proclamation on May 22nd, 1863. On the day of its departure, the 54th Massachusetts Infantry set sail on a steamer to Port Royal, South Carolina. The infantry faced pay discrimination as they were given $10 a week, while white soldiers, got $13 a week. They protested the disparity, but were not paid equal wages until towards the end of the war. That's some history.
Yes. Yeah, a lot. I was talking about Emancipation Proclamations. I mean, there's so many American stories that Black people could tell if given the opportunity. But today we also remember Maya Angelou, the poet, the actress, the mother of Blackness in this country. She died in 2014 on this date. We know her contributions. Of course, for every Black woman, one of the favorite poems is Phenomenal Woman. And so she was born on April 4th in 1928. We know she is a favorite mother to Oprah Winfrey and to so many of us. So today we remember Mother Maya Angelou.
There you go. And so our Black History pop quiz. It's time for the drum roll.
Drum roll.
In World War II, this future New York figure trained at Montford Point, the segregated boot camp for Black Marines, after first being rejected from the U.S. Marine Corps simply for being Black. We saw some responses. So the answer is, David Dinkins, the former mayor.
Wow. Okay. Is that who? Okay.
I did not know that. I'm
glad that you knew who he was.
Yes.
I wouldn't know that picture.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
now who is he? Now who is David Dinkins?
The first Black mayor in the history of New York City. And yeah, David Dinkins. Wow. David Dinkins always seemed like such a good guy. You know, it was Giuliani who defeated him in the 1990s, but Dinkins, he was really cool. What was the group? Was it Tribe Called Quest? Who was it, Greer? No, and the song "Can I Kick It?" Mr. Dinkins, would you please be my mayor? That was really cool. So that's a great it's a great picture, actually. Yep. And he's from Queens.
Okay.
That's right. That's right. That's royalty. David Dinkins. All right. So Orangey says that was a good one. Yeah, I'm surprised too, MB. I didn't know. I thought it was going to be Adam Clayton Powell. So there you go.
I had no clue on that one. I was just going to be educated. And I was.
And you were. All right, folks. Our Black-owned newspaper of the day is the Inner City Newspaper, located in New Haven, Connecticut. The Inner City Newspaper is the state's only Black-owned newspaper, where some of the latest headlines include questions and answers for parents of children with disabilities. A healthcare CEO is facing charges in a deadly car accident, and a No King's Day protest plan to protest Donald Trump's birthday celebration. Check out the Inner City Newspaper at theinnercitynews.com. And if you're in New Haven or in the surrounding areas of Connecticut, hey, pick up a physical copy of the Inner City News.
No King's Day. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, and for more news, I know April D. Ryan, as of yesterday, has been tracking what's happening in Martha's Vineyard. I mean, I saw she had video of undocumented workers fleeing in the woods. I was like, is this Harriet Tubman? I mean, what is going on?
What is going on?
That looked really scary. And then you have these slave catchers out just running, and these people are running, and you got it's mayhem in Martha's Vineyard, and April Ryan is on the case. So if you want to know more about that and anything else that's happening across Black America, head over to BlackPressUSA.com.
Folks, head back here tomorrow for another edition of Let It Be Known. Thanks for watching.